Back on the big side today. Okay, so update, we've got this side of the roof is on, the other side we're waiting for a flashing so we can continue to fit the other side of the roof. We've also got Bobby and Lenny here on Tuesday, all being well, to start ringing round the dwarf wall. We've had some deliveries of stairs, we've got the crusher back ready to crush this next pile of stone, and then we've got the bricks, the blocks of cement, the floor beams. We'll start with the Mezzanine Floor, and I'll tell you how these beams get fitted. So if you remember last time, we'd left the side beams out and we'd left it all loose. So side beams are now in and fitted, lined and levelled, everything tightened up, and then everything has been grouted in. So these floor beams then they've got lifting eyes in the top. We lift them in a flat orientation, and we bring them down and we drop them on, and they sit from beam to beam. Once we've lined and levelled the building and everything is exactly where we want it to be and everything's plumb, at that point we want to grout the stanchion legs in. So if you remember, on the underside we've got them cones with the pin through the middle, and we want to fill that gap with concrete or cement to stop, if you knock this stanchion, obviously it would move on the pins. Now they're grouted in, it won't move. So there's a few different ways you could do that, and obviously the way that we've done it, or we do it, is we put the little bund of sand all the way around the edge. Concrete or cement is fairly wet, and we pour that in, make sure it goes into all them cones, trowel it all in, just trowel the top round nice round the base plate, and then it's all covered and all in and done. So they're all now done. They've got to be done before Bobby and Lenny could come, because once they put the brickwork and blockwork, they sail that straight the way through and up to, so at the point afterwards you wouldn't be able to get in there to grout properly. So we've done all that now, we've just got to literally brush the sand away. Bobby and Lenny can come in, they can put the first courses of brick and block in. So these are some of the floor beams, and basically what we do, we detail it in the drawing office. So we set out which way the floor's being laid, how we're doing it, and then basically we send off all of that to the supplier. The supplier does the calc on it, they spec exactly what we're having in terms of strength, depth of panel and how the fitting is, and they do little cutouts as well, so it'll already come pre-cut if there's any connection detail that sort of fits around staircases or handrails or whatever it may be. So this is a hollow core floor beam. Inside you've got the lifting eyes in there, so that you've got like you have your chains. So on this one we would have a 3-leg chain, and then you've got a bracket that fits in there, clamps around that, connects to your hook of your chain. You lift it up, so you lift it flat all the time, and then you can obviously boom it into position and fit it wherever it goes. Hollow core means this, which is basically holes from one end of the panel to the other. So it keeps the floor beam light but keeps it strong in its construction, and then they're also reinforced the same as a concrete panel would be, with pre-stressed wires. So again, although similar principle to concrete panels stood up in the side of a building, these don't sort of tongue and groove lap together. So this is basically the side, the next one comes in, and it's again slightly chamfered like that. They butt up to one another, and then afterwards, before you screed the floor or put your insulation on or whatever it is you're doing above, that gap there you basically fill a little bit like grouting the posts in. You grout the top in and you grout these holes in, ready for when you come to put your floor screed on, or your insulation, or your underfloor heating, or whatever it is you've got going on. So in here we've just got a screed going on the top, which is going to be like a polished finish, a little bit like what we've got up in our offices in FOWLER and Gilbert. Okay, so then we've got the bricks and the blocks. Basically we've got on the exterior of the building visually, we've got the blue engineering brick, which is that. So that's the outside face. So basically that's what you'll see, with obviously a mortar joint and brick, then mortar joint, so on and so forth. So the outside of the building, on the underside of the cladding, you'll probably see 2 or 3 quarters of that blue brick. Then on the inside we've got the concrete solid blocks. A little bit like with the house build, we've got a combat cold bridging. Cold bridging is the transfer of cold from outside to inside. So we've got a cavity to put in. So A little bit like at the house, we have block, cavity, which will be filled with insulation, and then brick on the outer face. Definitely not going to make the same mistake as we made on the house with the cavity wall stroke cavity wall plus. So we're going to get the right stuff, but the regs have changed slightly since then. So I think we, on my house, have got 100mm cavity. I think it then went up to 125, and now I think it's at 150. So just need to double check with Big Dave, who's probably already sorted it, but not sure the exact width of the cavity that we've got going in here, or what the depth of insulation is, but obviously he'll have that sorted. So like I say, Bobby and Lenny here on Tuesday, and they'll be starting to ring that round. Once that's rung round, then really we can be getting on with the groundworks inside regarding the insulation and the floor slab, and then also we can get on with the cladding works, because all the cladding sort of sits down or up to that outer face of blue engineering brick. Okay, so then we've got the staircases. So each mezz floor has got one staircase to it each end of the building. Now, because the staircase has got to go X amount of rise, because it's over whatever the threshold is, it's got to have a landing in the middle. So basically we have a precast set of stairs. These are finished differently as well, you'll notice, from the floor beams, because these can be your finish. So if you want to resin this, for argument's sake, like we have done in the Trent Fasteners building, you can just resin straight onto this. You just put like an undercoat on it, and then you put the resin on, and that's it. So, or you can leave it as is, but obviously it does stay a bit dusty at the finish that it's at now. But basically, each section goes in. So that section nearest you there, that's the base section, so that sits on the ground, and then is supported by some steel work at the top end on the landing. And then this next piece, this bottom end with these two brackets here, sits on top of that in the recesses that you can see in that end one, which is the same as that first one. And then that other end then sits up onto a supporting steel work where you access the mezzanine floor from. So in this scenario, you basically go up that staircase, on the landing, onto this staircase, on the landing, turn left, and you go into the mezzanine floor area. So again, lifting method is very similar to the other panels, but in this scenario we've got 4 lifting points. So you adjust your chains on your 4-leg chains to suit, obviously, lifting it like that effectively. So basically that there is where that sits. So you put that in, you roll it round, that's now locked in, and your lifting shackle, you lift with your hook on your chain through that point. And as it's trying to lift it constantly, it's basically trying to push, well, you put that in that orientation, I suppose, and then it's constantly trying to pull down so it can't unlock itself until you've took the pressure off. Okay, so that's the staircase. Now we have got a few issues actually, or we haven't, but the customer's got a couple of issues with building regs here, because obviously you could have steel stairs, you could have metal stairs, but there is, because there's one set of stairs coming from the mezzanine and the area of the mezzanine, it has to be fire protected. So it's a means of escape, and that means of escape route has to be protected from fire from the rest of the building. So the issue that the customer has got is we've done concrete stairs, so obviously no fire can transfer through the underside, but then you've got to put a corridor in over the stairs and basically all the way through to the exit of the building. Now, because the regs have changed and I think everybody's got a little bit more hot on it, under normal circumstances you could do a stud wall, which is fine, with plasterboard or fireboard and plastered, and that would give you your 30-minute fire protection. I think the walls are still fine. I think there is an issue somehow with the ceiling. British Gypsum, as in the plasterboard and plaster people, they don't do a piece of paper that basically says this system will work for 30 minutes or an hour or whatever is required. So at the moment, from this staircase all the way to the underside of the composite panel roof is what is proposed to be a stud wall. So that is going to be a massive, massive tall stud wall, and I can't see any way of which we can construct that without putting supporting steelwork in or whatever it may be. But again, if you put supporting steelwork in, the steelwork's got to be fire protected as well. So I don't really know how we're going to combat that, but obviously that's the customer and the architect's problem, and they'll get that sorted. We'll work with them and do what we can, but ultimately they've got to get it resolved so we know what we're actually fitting. So at the moment the stud work is designed to actually sit on the side here of what we've got, so that would then come down and give you a complete enclosure. If they want it fitting all the way to the roof, that's like a 30-foot tall stud wall in the middle, so can't really see how that's going to work. The other thing about the big site at the minute is we've got planning now for the next building, and we've got the conditions discharged as well, so we're ready on a paperwork front to make a start. Practically we've got to move that, because right where we're stood is where we've got building 2 going of this block. That one is obviously the one that is a customer of ours and they bought that. This one here is going to retain our own building, because Trent needs extra storage and other product lines that we're bringing in we want to stock, so we need the Trent 2 building, and then there'll be a couple of other units here as well. So we've got to get rid of this, which is probably about 4,000 or 5,000 tonne of material here to get rid of before we can even start with the groundworks, which is depressing. So that's quite exciting. We've got architects done all the bits and bobs that he needs. It's gone off for building control. We're just waiting for the nod, and then really we can start stripping this site off, stoning this little bit up, or what's left of the footprint, get the foundations in and get the steel on. And then now we've laid this out, which is effectively what we would call block 2. We've got the road, which I think we're just waiting for the final bits of the paperwork before we can construct the road. And then once we've got that, we really need to start thinking about planning wise what we're doing with the rest of the site. So we've got like 20 odd acres left, of about 16 of which is development land over there. So we've got to start really plotting out the shapes and sizes of the plots. And as well as that, we've obviously got the other land, which is the offsetting land for the biodiversity net gain. So in fact, we'll go and have a look at that. While we're walking down there, we'll leave you guys with a big site montage. So this is the land that we bought for the offsetting of the ecology values, or ecological values should I say, of the site that we're developing. This is what we're proposing to offset that on. So basically the boundary of this is we brought from here all the way up to through where the bales are up to the main road, which goes along, comes back down along that hedge line, runs along the bottom of that field of ours at the back of our farm there, all the way round, and then not that field, and then right the way up to them trees you can see at the top, and back down the canal and back to where we are. So this, where we stood now, is the old railway line, which is what Western Way is built on. This is the railway line, and then what we've got to do is we've got to take parcels of this and plant it up with scrub to enhance the ecological value of the whole area. Parts of it we can still graze. That top part there where the bales are that we've mown, that actually doesn't need to form part of it, or most of that doesn't need to form part of what we're doing. So we can still continue to mow that or graze it, whatever we want to do, and we can still do the same with parcels of this. We've just got to get them fenced off. Planting wise, can't plant till planting season starts, which is sort of after September. So at the moment we can graze it. But the biggest problem that I can see us having is how we're going to get on here to plant these areas, because over the course of so many years now that I've been coming down here, obviously I've lived in and around Market Drayton all my life, but this has got worse and worse and worse in terms of how wet the land gets. So originally there was basically 2 or 3 little pools at the bottom that were built when the first development come down here. It was built as newt ponds. That has now gone from probably what was an acre, and the wet lying land is now probably a good 6 or 7 acres. I've walked as far as I can down the brook course, and as far as I can see there's a blockage further down which is holding all of this water back. The blockage is not on our land, and I can't see for the life of me how we're going to get to that, or how anybody's going to get to that to clear it. So I need to make some inquiries really on how we're going to clear that, because as it stands at the moment we're bound to plant this, but we can't plant it because we can't get anyone anywhere. You can't walk anywhere through that. The other worrying thing as well is when the cows got out last week or the week before, we nearly lost one because it buried itself in the swampy bit over here. Luckily we managed to get it out and everything was fine, but we need to dry it out and get it back to what it was originally, so we can get on, plant these areas up, and make the most out of what land is left. I don't know why cattle absolutely love the railway line. They spend loads of time on the railway line, even though all the grass technically is over there. So like I said, originally, or going back a few years, when the newt ponds were installed, it was nicely landscaped. There was all these big tree roots and stuff chucked in there, all stuff for newts, and then they fenced it off. So when that fence line has gone in, there's obviously been a tractor and a post knocker that's gone in and put that fence in there and across the top end, which has fenced this area off here, which I say is probably about an acre-ish. And then you can see over the course of the years how this has gradually got worse and worse, because if you've had a tractor and a post knocker on to put that fence line in there, that was where the original owners were grazing up to. And then you can see over there is another fence line gone in where clearly they've given up on this because they can't get rid of the water and it's waterlogged and they don't want to lose any stock to it, so they put another fence line in. But now you're probably still 50 or 60 yards of the other side of the far fence line and you can't get anywhere near it. So this is retaining an immense amount of water, and it can only be because of that blockage down the line, because basically all of the water of all of this naturally drains into the ditches and then goes into this brook course, which goes all the way around the back of the site there between here and the field with the bales on, and then basically goes behind that factory that's over there and off under the road, under the main road, and through into the town, and works its way all the way through the town eventually. So yeah, we need to find a way of clearing that, because as you can imagine, if any of these cattle broke loose now and got into there, we've lost them. So that's it. If you like what you're seeing, hit subscribe, ring the bell, and we'll catch you guys next time. Cheers.